A very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to the ICAN initiative, the Hindu and Indian Express analysis. We'll start the day with the prelims theme of the day. So today's theme is science and technology. Reason being, in that we'll focus more on the diseases because of the corona pandemic. Any question on virus or diseases in general can be very much expected in this year's prelims. So you will have to cover about the diseases which have been in news, categorizing them as a viral diseases, bacterial diseases, neglected tropical diseases, and also rare diseases. And then you also have to list down the diseases that have been eliminated from India, and then particularly regarding virus, because it is coronavirus, you have to know what is the genetic component of a virus, whether it is only RNA, DNA, or both, or what is it. So everything about virus you need to study it properly. So this is a theme for the day, and this is going to be very important from the prelims point of view. Now we'll start with the topics of the day. The first topic we're going to be looking at is the environmental impact assessment. So this topic we have already studied before, also related to the recent draft that has been put on the public domain, the draft environmental impact assessment rules, and the analysis of it, the limitations of this draft notification, we have already seen that. So this is part of your GS3 syllabus, which is a specific topic of environmental impact assessment. So what we're going to see in this is again two specific issues related to this draft notification. First is this notification kind of dilutes the environmental impact assessment, the regime which is at present there. So there is the section 26 in this draft notification. This section 26 talks about those projects which have been exempted from any environmental clearance. So that means these are those projects which do not require to get any environmental clearance in the first place. The second is section 14, which talks about those projects which may need an environmental clearance, but however they don't require public consultation. So these are those projects which have been exempted from public consultation. So we know that several of these projects, they go through those regions which are occupied by the tribals and other vulnerable sections of society. These public consultations were the means to get their voices, but now their voice is going to be diluted because section 14 involves, it makes a list of those projects which does not require any public consultation. So this is kind of liberalizing the concessions on several road projects and the highway projects. So therefore the first issue is related to the dilution, and in that two specific sections, section 26 and 14. Next is the issue of public responses. So this draft notification itself was kept in the public domain for suggestions from the people, but the amount of time given for credible responses from the people was very less. It was the order of the Delhi High Court which actually extended this timeline till August 11 to receive public responses on this draft notification. So this can also be used in a topic where you are talking about participative decision making or public policy making of the government, the way the policies are made. So in that one definite very important topic is the involvement of people or the people's participation in the policy formulation. So on the one hand, we have on the social media, we have mygov.in, where people can come out with their own suggestions to various policy proposals. But here is one example where such a short time was given for people to respond to a draft notification. So this can be used as a counter example whenever you are writing any answer on the public participation in a democratic government. So that you can write. So this can be a part of your answer on good governance or transparency and accountability. So in all of these things, you can use this as an example. So coming back to this draft notification, the time that was given for the people to respond to this notification was very less. And secondly, government has also blocked some websites where some activists had called for this EIA draft notification to be dropped, saying that this has very deleterious effect on the environment. So the draft EIA notification needs to be dropped. So this was told by some activists on some websites, and the government has now blocked these websites as well. So these are two counter examples for public participation also, and this is also an issue associated with the draft EIA notification. So therefore the next we come to is a data that is related to forest diversion. So this can be used in any question that talks about environmental protection and the issues which are being faced. So in that, one thing is that a lot of forest areas are diverse, they are diverted every year for carrying out some of the other developmental projects. So between 2014 to 2018, nearly 4,300 hectares of forest area has been diverted by giving coal mining clearances. So only for coal mining purposes, nearly 4,300 hectares of forest have been diverted in just the span of time between 2014 to 2018. And this is of particular relevance now because of the COVID crisis. We know how exploitation of the environment and exploitation of the forests can bring us more closer into the virus reservoirs which are at present in the inaccessible regions of the forest. But if we keep on exploiting the forest this way, then we come more closer and closer to these virus reservoirs. So that might then give rise to various other unknown diseases also, which can spread from the wild to the humans. So that is why this issue becomes all the more important and relevant now. So this data on forest diversion can be used in your answers. So we will go to the next topic, which is on India's foreign policy. So this whole article, the theme of the article was that how India's foreign policy had been before and how it has been now, and this change in the India's status at the international level that has been brought about by a change in our foreign policy trajectory. So what are two most important changes in the foreign policy trajectory because of which we have seen such change in the status of India at the international level? So this obviously is a part of your GS2 paper on international relations. So first, the article says that how our India's status at the international level was before and how is it now. So first it says that India was one of the rising powers in the South Asia and in the Indian Ocean region. And when we talk about SAARC, India was the de facto leader in the SAARC region as well. And with Nepal, we had that traditional civilizational and cultural linkages with Nepal, and it was a natural ally for us. So we had open borders with Nepal and immense people-to-people relations. Similarly, with Sri Lanka and Bangladesh also, we had very good relations, and a lot of goodwill was there in the relations between these two countries. And same was with Afghanistan. With Afghanistan, we had invested billions of dollars in aid to Afghanistan. So, and also how we were keen to develop, carry out developments in Afghanistan as well. So these were our foreign policy before, the status of India before. So what has happened now? So now, on the other hand, we see an entirely different scenario where on the one hand, China is being very aggressive at the line of actual control. The SAARC also stands very inactive because India has always, in the SAARC as a forum, India has always highlighted the issue of terrorism, and it wants the other countries also to highlight this issue of terrorism against Pakistan. So this has become, SAARC entire thing has become more India-Pakistan centric, and it has also lost its vitality. So this has been the issue with SAARC. Similarly with Nepal, in 2015 when the constitution was about to be formed in Nepal, and the way India responded to it, it has been said that India adopted a big brother attitude. And also currently how, because of the road building in that region and how the Nepal has brought about its own political map. So this boundary issue is again persisting between India and Nepal. And related to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, here again the Chinese influence on these countries is also increasing, and the China's presence through various investment projects in these countries is increasing, and they are part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Even with Afghanistan, currently the peace process, Afghanistan peace process is taking place where talks are being held with the Taliban. There are multiple countries which are participating in this, which are facilitating this, but India is out of these multi-country dialogue. So India is now not part of this. Earlier, India had good relations with Iran as well, and through Iran we planned to reach Afghanistan and also Central Asia by bypassing Pakistan. But now we have delayed the Zahedan Road project, and also China is making huge inroads in Iran. Similarly, earlier we were the proponents of multilateralism and we had very good relations with Iran. Iran was one of the largest oil exporters to India, and as I just mentioned about the Zahedan road which India was Zahedan rail network which India was supposed to develop. Similarly, with China as well, we adopted the 2C approach. On the one hand, there is competition, but the other hand, there is cooperation between the two countries. So this was before, and then we also saw the after scenario with respect to India's status in the international level. So when we talk about this change of now and then, the foreign policy of India becomes very important. Foreign policy is more dynamic in nature. It is not static. It is going to have its own ups and downs. But however, overall, by seeing the then and now of India's status in the international world, in the international scenario, what we see is that there is a fall in India's smart power exercise that it exercises across the world. So we need to analyze our foreign policy trajectory. When we analyze this foreign policy trajectory, there are two main important problems or challenges that we face. One is that we have seen that there has been a closer alignment of India's policy choices with the United States, and secondly, there has also been more coupling of India's choices with our own domestic politics. So these are two very important challenges which our foreign policy is facing, because of which there is a change between the then and now in our international status. So now we'll have an analysis of what this closer alignment with the US and about this coupling with the domestic politics. So when we talk of alignment with the United States, though we have time and again said that non-alignment movement is no longer applicable because it was applicable in a bipolar world, but now we are living in a multipolar world, so where there are not any two superpowers, but every country is developing independently and also strongly. So NAM is no longer relevant because there is a transition from bipolarity to multipolarity. So we have time and again also stressed on India's strategic autonomy, that irrespective of the NAM not being relevant now, India has always had the strategic autonomy and we take independent decisions. That is what India's claim has always been. But however, this has not always been true. The most clear example of this is Iran. So India had good relations with Iran. Iran was one of the largest exporters of oil to India. We were also about to build the Chabahar-Zahedan railway link project. But however, because of the United States policy that any country dealing with Iran, then that country is also going to face sanctions, we reduced our oil imports. Similarly, we delayed the Chabahar-Zahedan railway link development. The Chabahar port development itself also took many years. And then when the JCPOA agreement, that is a P5 plus agreement, the deal was signed between the P5 plus 1 countries and Iran. So that time India also increased its oil imports from Iran. And under the Trump administration, when this deal was broken, and that time India again reduced its imports of oil from Iran. So all of this shows that we claim that we enjoy that strategic autonomy and we take decisions irrespective of what the policies of other countries are. But if we look at the example of Iran, this has not always been so. So we have been impacted by the United States policy and we have been trying to increase our alignment with that of the United States. In another sphere where this is more clearly seen is we have deepened our military ties with the United States. So one example for this is we have signed LEMOA also. So which is the Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement, in which both the countries get to use each other's ports for non-military purposes. So we have signed these LEMOA kind of agreements, which has also deepened our military ties. And today United States wants to have an alliance with India in order to counter China in the Indo-Pacific region. So all of these shows that our foreign policy has not enjoyed that strategic autonomy. Rather, there is a constant dilution or an erosion of strategic autonomy that India has enjoyed. And more than ever, we are now trying to align ourselves with the interests of the United States. So this is it is because of this that we have lost friends like Iran. So this is one reason why there is a shift between the then and the now in our international status. The second reason for this is coupling with the domestic politics. So it means that whatever our domestic policies are, they have a bearing on our international relations as well. For instance, we were trying to pass the Citizenship Amendment Act. So this had some specific issues. For instance, it was trying to, the main aim was to protect the minorities who were persecuted in India's neighborhood and to give them Indian citizenship. So this consciously left out the Muslim minorities in our neighboring countries. Plus, this was also not taken well by our neighboring countries. For instance, Bangladesh took an offense of this. It felt that India wants to give protection and citizenship to those people who it thinks are persecuted in Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is now seen by India as a country which has actually persecuted a section of its people. So definitely countries in our neighborhood will take offense of it, and this is how we have diluted our relationship with these friendly neighboring countries through our domestic politics. Similarly is the issue with Jammu and Kashmir. So Jammu and Kashmir Article 370 was diluted, and Jammu and Kashmir was broken down into two separate union territories. And now when we look at the Galvin escalation that happened between India and China, many experts have said that one of the important reasons for that is the dilution of Article 370 and making two union territories, which has given center more leeway in that particular region to improve the infrastructure and logistics. So therefore, this policy in Jammu and Kashmir has actually kind of invited China for a conflict escalation at the border. So this we see, through this we see how domestic politics has actually a bearing on our international or our foreign relations and our foreign policy. So these are the two important reasons that were discussed in this editorial regarding how what are all those reasons which has actually led to this change from then and now. So previously we had seen various other factors that were posing challenges to our foreign policy. So one challenge to our foreign policy we had discussed was the delay in the implementation of the projects that we are taking in countries. So one is the example of Iran, where there has been a delay of the Chabahar-Zahedan railway line. Next is the delay in Nepal of the Pancheshwar project. So similarly, even in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, we have taken up projects which has seen endless delays, and it has still not seen the light of the day even today. So this is one challenge to our foreign policy. The second challenge that we have seen in the previous discussions was the erosion of our soft power. So soft power was based on the on ideology that there is a cultural and civilizational linkages between the two countries, like say Buddhism between India and Nepal. So there is this religious and cultural civilizational linkages which gives a sense of unity among the nations. But however, this soft power is getting eroded these days because countries do not want to be recognized by saying that there is a civilizational similarity. Rather, countries now want to hear that they are more unique in various respects. So there is this demand that the countries have to be recognized for their uniqueness rather than being recognized for their unity or the sameness with respect to civilizational values. So these issues we had discussed in our one of our previous videos, where we took up the challenges to our foreign policy. So with that, you can also couple these two are two other challenges to our foreign policy. One being our alliance with the United States, and second being coupling with the domestic politics. Here again, you can talk about how our domestic politics has influenced the way we have treated Sri Lanka also based on the Tamil Eelam issue. So like that, we have allowed the domestic politics to influence our foreign relations with our neighboring countries. So these are the challenges to our foreign policy. So by now we have collected 4 very important challenges to our foreign policy. So now we come to the next topic, which is regarding the communal riots. So this again we had seen in one of the previous videos where in Delhi the communal riots were seen when there were protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act. So this whole article was on the communal riots that happened in Delhi. So this can be a part of your GS1 paper where you're talking about the Indian society. So here Indian society and the communal riots, which shows that the Indian society is not very rather there are dissensions and divisions in the society. So it can come as part of your paper 1 syllabus. In GS2 it can come because communal rights is again an aspect of governance. So in the governance issue it can come up, and these communal rights, how they are handled by the police, so it can come as part of the civil service topic of GS2, and as part of GS3 also it can come because it can form a part of your security issues. So in any of these 3 papers the issue on communal rights can come. So now we will discuss about the communal riots that happened in Delhi and what are the observations that were done that. So first, the case of Delhi riots shows 2 very important observations. First is that many of the victims were themselves treated as the perpetrators of the violence, and also once the violence, the communal violence is, or the communal riot is it subsides, then a reconciliation process will have to be done between the 2 warring communities. So if it is Hindus and Muslims, they will have to be reconciled and peace needs to be established, which will be long lasting. But this reconciliation process that usually happens after the riot is being neglected, and this does not happen. So because this is being neglected, residual anger remains in both the warring communities, which will give rise to further communal riots between the 2 warring communities. So these were the 2 important issues about the case Delhi riots. Also, the Delhi Minority Commission had set up a fact-finding committee to find out about the Delhi riots. Now this has come out with a report which talks about several things. First thing it says is there was targeting that was based on faith. So that means whatever action was taken during the riot was dependent upon the faith of the person. In some instances, the victims in the riot, they were even asked to show their ID cards, and based on their name the faith would be recognized, and based on the faith action would be taken on them, that is violence would be done on them. So the next thing is during the riots there was a lot of slogans that were being shouted by the mob, and these slogans were clearly anti-Muslim and they were filled with hatred for Muslims. The third observation that was made is the violence also happened on the Muslim women. Many Muslim women have given testimonies that people rushed into their houses, they looted the house, and they also were made to be subject to some vulgar language and even sexual harassment. So this was the violence on women was also prevalent. Next is the destruction of religious and sacred places. So several of the mosques, madrasas and even dargahs were also destroyed during the riots. And other thing is the police complicity. So in spite of the violence or the riots that are happening, the police kind of neglected these riots, and the complicity on part of the police was also observed by the fact-finding committee. Regarding this, the recommendation usually that is made by various committees is whenever a communal riot happens, then the recommendation more often that is made is there has to be an independent inquiry into the communal riot, that is what led to the riot and what happened and who needs to be held accountable, all that. So usually after the communal riot ends, a committee is set up which will undertake an independent inquiry into the communal riot and also fix accountability on the people who perpetrated the riot. But however, what this editorial says is these committees which are constituted post riot are usually an eyewash. They don't lead to any substantial fact finding, or it does not even hold the involved persons accountable. So this was noticed even in the Justice Sahai Commission. The Justice Sahai Commission was set up in 2013 when the communal riots happened in Muzaffarnagar. So Justice Sahai Commission even gave a clean sheet to the Home Department of Uttar Pradesh, which was during that time headed by the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister himself. So this also did not reach to the root cause of the problem or even recommend punishment for the people who were involved in instigating the riots. Same thing also happened when Justice A.S. Naidu Commission was set up. This commission was set up in Odisha when there were anti-Christian violence that was happening there in 2008. It submitted its report in 2015, but the report even today has not been tabled in the state assembly. So whenever a question comes on communal riots, we know the important issues. One is that the victims are treated as perpetrators and the police complicity is there, and also the issue associated with setting up of these independent committees for inquiry, which are merely an eyewash. You can also substantiate that using the examples of Justice Sahai Commission and the Justice A.S. Naidu Commission. Now we'll move to the next topic, which is related to food security. So this will come under the topic of issues related to poverty and hunger. This again can come under paper 1 under poverty and hunger issue, or paper 2, which is about the analysis of various schemes, welfare measures for the vulnerable sections, and also under GS3, which talks about agriculture and the cropping patterns. So it can come under any of these 3 papers. So the recently we had also seen that this food security and nutrition in the world 2020 report has been released. Now we will have a look at the important points that this report tries to make. So first thing this report talks about is that there are mainly 3 types of diet. One is a basic energy sufficient diet. So this diet it mainly focuses on the calorie consumption. So if 2400 kilocalories need to be consumed each day, so the main concern of this is whether how many people are actually getting the basic energy sufficient food. So where the focus is just on the calorie fulfillment. So in this category, people mostly they try to match up to this calorie by consuming the starchy cereals like rice and wheat. So they don't focus on micronutrients or entire balanced diet. So they just focus on the calories of 2400, which they mainly achieve by eating some starchy cereals like rice and wheat. The next level is the diet 2 is a nutrient adequate diet. So in this, apart from these starchy cereals of rice and wheat, focus is also given on the micronutrients. So this is the second type of diet. The third type of diet is a healthy diet. Healthy diet has both the macronutrients, micronutrients, and it involves a wholesome diet which includes carbohydrates, proteins, that is legumes and all, then adequate amount of fat, vitamins, minerals, dairy products, fruits and vegetables. Everything comes under the healthy diet, which is the third type of diet. So this State of Food Security and Nutrition report talks about these 3 types of diet, and it says that people in different parts of the world and how much they are able to afford which type of the diet is a matter of concern. So on this it says that in South Asia, people usually go for the diet 1, that is just the basic energy sufficient diet, where mostly people eat their staples of rice and wheat. So this is in those cases or for those people whose income is less than $1.90 per day, which is actually the international poverty line for on the basis of purchasing power parity. So this is the poverty line at the international level, which is $1.90. So with this much amount in a day, people will mostly be able to afford just the diet 1, that is the basic sufficient diet. So people in South Asia are going to eat just their staples. So for diet 2, that is the adequate diet, for that it requires $2.12 per day. So this income is more than the international poverty line. So therefore those people who are below or even just above the poverty line, it is not possible for them to afford this kind of diet. The third type of diet, which is a balanced diet or a healthy diet, is $4.07 per day, and this amount is more than even twice the international poverty line. So therefore a majority of people who are even little above the poverty line are unable to afford this healthy diet. So if this State of Food Security and Nutrition report says that 18% South Asians they go for rather they cannot go for diet 2, that is the adequate diet, and 58% of the South Asians, they cannot afford the healthy diet. So this is a huge number who cannot afford the healthy diet, which is a balanced diet of all the important things. So when we talk of the Indian poverty line and the international poverty line, according to the Tendulkar committee, which is the one that even today we use it, the urban poverty line is 33 rupees per day and rural poverty line is 27 rupees per day. And this is less than the international poverty line for $1.50. So if you are saying, comparing with this international poverty line, that 58% of South Asians cannot afford diet 3, then if we analyze it from the Indian poverty line perspective, then even more number of South Asians will not be able to afford the diet 3. So this shows how important it is to address the affordability of healthy diets, particularly in South Asia. So if our aim is to reduce malnutrition and food insecurity, then the first thing we have to do is to make food more affordable to people. Because more often than not, we say that there is sufficient quantity of food in India and malnutrition is associated not with the affordability of the food. So food is sufficiently there, but however, the kind of food that people are getting also matters a lot. So in order to reduce malnutrition and ensure food security to all, we also need to address the problem of affordability of these diets. So now we come to the next topic, which is the India-Sri Lanka relations. This is part of your GS2 syllabus and the international relations. So this article was written by Prasad Kariyavasam, who was the High Commissioner to India. So you can quote the name and mention that he was the High Commissioner to India, and also quote some of the opinions under the name of the author. So in this, first of all, he introduces by talking about the timeline of India-Sri Lanka relations, which began from the spread of Buddhism from India to Sri Lanka, and how Ashoka also sent emissaries to Sri Lanka for spread of the Buddhism and the Buddhist Dhamma. Then there were traders who traveled from India to Sri Lanka, and they were engaged in various trading activities. In fact, the ancient capital city of Anuradhapur in Sri Lanka, this had housed an international community of traders from various countries, including India, China, and even to the extent of Arabia and Persia. So then comes the time of British colonialism, during which plantations in Sri Lanka, laborers were taken from India. So they were taken from India to Sri Lanka and they were made to work on the plantations in Sri Lanka. So this shows basically an evolution of the relationship right from the ancient times till the modern times. So this form of presentation you can give in an answer, which is asking about the India-Sri Lanka relationship. So then the article talks about the fact that there are common interests between India and Sri Lanka, and to achieve these common interests we need to have more friendly engagement. So these common interests are, one is that we need freedom of navigation in the Indo-Pacific waters. We also aim for a rule-based international order, and whatever disputes are there, it has to be settled in a peaceful manner. And also, given the strategic location of Sri Lanka, and also the how the economic relations, economic activities of the two are linked to each other, mutual security interests are also very important. So these are our common interests based on which we can reignite our cooperation further and deepen our cooperation. So this was about the India-Sri Lanka relations. Our next topic is related to the banking sector issues. So in this whole article on stress test, one important data was there regarding the non-performing assets. So we will just be looking at this important data on non-performing assets. So what this article says is that RBI had conducted some stress tests on the banks to assess what has been the economic shock that these banks have suffered and what has been the impact on the bank balance sheets. So according to the RBI estimates, the NPA, the non-performing assets were, so as on March 2020, the NPAs was 8.5% of the total lending of the banks. So, but this is going to increase to 12.5% by March 2021. So this estimates hold true if the economy contracts by nearly 4.4% this year. So this is the data that NPS being 8.5% in March 2020 can become 12.5% by March 2021 if our economy is contracting by 4.4% this year. So therefore, what is important is we need to address this weakness in the financial system of India. We are talking about the issue that banks have to give more, lend more to the private sector in order for the investment to pick up. But however, the banks are risk averse and they feel that they will face that risk if they are lending more. So because they already are facing the balance sheet, double balance sheet syndrome, or the twin balance sheet syndrome. So in this case, for the banks to be able to lend to the private sector and for investment to pick up in the country, this weakness in the financial sector, we need to address the root cause of it. And if we don't address, then this weakness in the financial sector is also going to slow down our economic recovery. So this was an important data on the NPS. So now we will go to topic which is related to the women issues. So this whole article, it had some very important data which needs to be remembered whenever we are writing about the women issues. So first is the child marriage. Child marriage in 1970 to 1980, it was 58% was prevalent, and now in 2015-16, 21% of the marriages were child marriages. So therefore, we can see how much decline there has been in the prevalence of child marriage. But however, there are differences when we consider different states and also between the rural and the urban areas. For instance, West Bengal. In West Bengal, the child marriage prevalence is at 39%. So this is followed by Bihar and Jharkhand. So there is interstate differences also in the prevalence of child marriage. Same applies to the rural and the urban areas as well. So in the urban areas, the prevalence of child marriage is 17.5%, whereas in the rural areas it is 31.5%. So this is the prevalence of child marriage. So we can see that it has declined, but however, there are interstate differences, and there is also the rural urban divide, where rural areas are having more prevalence of child marriages compared to the urban areas. Next, the article establishes a link between the early marriage of the girls and the neonatal mortality. So when girls get married early, then they will also have early pregnancy, and early pregnancy is directly linked to low birth weight, where it says that every 3 out of the 10 child born because of early pregnancy is having low birth weight, and also neonatal mortality, which is 23 for 1000 live births. So therefore, it is linking child marriage to neonatal mortality and low birth weight. So this can be used as one argument why child marriage should not be done. If child marriage is done, then it also affects the infant by causing low birth weight and also mortality. Next, it says that as a solution for child marriage, it's very important to propagate education among girls, because the data shows that among those girls who are married less than before they turned 18, and for those girls who were not at all educated, it was 45%. That is, for those girls who were not educated at all, 45% of such girls were married before 18. So for those girls who had attained primary education, 40% of them were married before 18. And for those who had attained secondary education, 23% of them were married before 18. And for those who had attained higher education, just 3% of them were married before 18. So which means increase in the educational attainment is seeing a proportional decrease in the early marriage. So therefore, preference to education when it is given by the girls, it is also leading to a postponement of their marriage, and thereby a reduction in the percentage of child marriages with increase in the educational attainment. So this data clearly establishes that propagating education among the girls can delay their marriage and therefore reduce the occurrence of child marriages. Next, the editorial also says that when girls get better education, they are also better empowered. They have more say in the decisions that are being taken at home. So they will also have more say and more awareness regarding family planning and also safe abortion practices. So this is also another reason why it is very important to educate women. Then it says that early marriage it leads to actually early marriage, when it is happening, then the mother height is very poor. So poor maternal height is actually associated with chronic child malnutrition. In fact, it is observed. So prevalence of malnutrition among children who are born to the adolescent mothers is 11% higher than among the others. So the early marriage and the height of the mother is directly linked to the chronic child malnourishment. So this is another reason why we should postpone the age at which marriage is done. Apart from this, there are also various customary practices. For instance, Petu is a customary practice among the tribals where the girl is sent off to the house of the in-laws by the parents at a young age. So this is even before any formal wedding has taken place. So the girl remains at her husband's place, and usually when the girl's parents have enough resources to feed the community in a community feast, or which is usually after the girl child has already born a child, after the girl has already born a children, only then a formal wedding happens. So, and there is another custom which is called as gauna, in which the child is getting married at a young age, but then the girl continues to be with her parents. So it was only after she attains puberty that the girl is then goes to the in-laws home. So these are some of the customary practices, and their prevalence is also high in India. Because of these customary practices, it is also difficult to convince the parents to postpone the age of marriage. So this is one challenge we encounter when we talk of postponing the age of marriage or reducing the child marriages. So the solution here is not just to increase the age of marriage, but also to delay the conception of the woman at an early age soon after the marriage. So that is when we can prevent malnourished children, low birth weight children. That is how we can prevent. So this is the solution. First is to increase the age of marriage and also to delay the conception. Move on to the question of the day, which is DigiPivot. So you have to tell me what is DigiPivot, what is it, who are all the target beneficiaries of DigiPivot, whose initiative is it, and what is the intended outcome of this initiative. So this is related to the current affairs, the prelims portion that we are covering daily. And yesterday's prelims theme that I gave on wetlands, many of you have written very good answers. So that is very good from your side that you are writing such good answers in the comment section. And secondly, I had asked in the prelims current affairs section about Yuva, so which many of you have rightly pointed out that it is a initiative by UNICEF for skill development. And one more thing that I want to stress here is when I'm saying Yuva and you are just writing the answer. So basically we are discussing this as part of the prelims current affairs because your prelims are approaching. But also think about it from the mains perspective. So whenever I say Yuva or DigiPivot, you must also think given which question I'll be able to use this in mains answer. So if you consider Yuva, for instance, if there is any question on skill development, if there is any question on the employment generation, about the job opportunities, how they can be increased in the economy because we are facing jobless growth, in all such cases you have to mention some of the measures that are being taken by the government or otherwise. In such cases, you can mention such initiatives as Yuva to make your answer stand out. So even what things that you feel are very factual and which you are studying for prelims will also have a utility in the mains exam. You just have to figure out where you have to write them in your answers, under which topic, and accordingly you have to make a note of it so that you can recollect that at the right time. So that's it for today. Thank you.